Hello, Rebels of the Sherpa Revolution. Normally, I start off this podcast by saying hi, but I'm going to start this one off by saying hydration. We know how important hydration is for our bodies. It's the thing that keeps us running, right? You want to be a well-oiled machine. You want to be running efficiently. You know what can help you run efficiently? Liquid IV. It is the category-winning hydration brand fueling your well-being, and the hydration multiplier is the one product that you are missing in your daily routine. It comes in a little stick that's a powder, and in just one stick, you get 5 essential vitamins and 2 times faster hydration than water alone. If you use it first thing in the morning, maybe before a workout, when you feel run down, maybe after a long night out and doing a little partying, you know what I mean? And even what if you have like a long flight or something like that and you just bleh, right? We all feel that way, bleh. So add this to your water, and that convenient packaging can go with you anywhere you go, even if you're going to the gym or you're traveling or you're at work and maybe you didn't have a great breakfast. At least it's something that will fuel you up in the morning, and there's a whole bunch of flavors that are available, like sea berry, strawberry lemonade, Concord grape, lemon lime, pina colada, tropical punch, watermelon, strawberry, passion fruit, guava, acai berry. Did I say that right? I never know how to say that. But those are just some of the flavors. Here's some statistics for you folks. 1 stick of liquid IV in 16 ounces of water contains 5 essential vitamins: B3, B5, B6, B12, and even vitamin C. And we all know how important those B vitamins are. It's got 3 times the electrolytes of traditional sports drinks. It's made with premium ingredients. It's non-GMO, and it is free from gluten, dairy, and soy. I'm going to offer you a great deal, Rebels. If you go to liquidiv.com and use offer code Sherpa, you can get 20% off of anything that you order on that site when you're shopping for some better hydration. So that's Liquid IV. Check it out at liquidiv.com. Podcast that you're listening to is being presented to you in cooperation with the SJ Network. If you're a person who'd like to appear on a podcast, contact Stephen Joyner at s-j-network.com. Let's get on with the show.
Welcome to episode 300 of Too Many Podcasts. This is the episode where Jim the podcast Sherpa will cover himself in blood and then swim in a pool of sharks. Well, not really, but I guess a girl can dream. Instead, it's a look back on season 11 with Sherpa Suggestions, Sherpa Samples, lots of thank yous, and an intelligent thought thrown in here and there. So have a listen, and here's to 300 more episodes. Is my mic off? I hope I'm getting paid enough in paper clips to read this.
Welcome to Too Many Podcasts, the podcast about podcasts. Now, podcasting from the Sherpa Chalet on Mount Podcastia, here's your host, Jim, the podcast Sherpa.
Hello there, Rebels, and welcome to Too Many Podcasts. It is the podcast about podcasts and so much more. It is me, Jim, the podcast Sherpa, and according to my podcasting platform, this episode is episode 300. Yes, you've put up with me for 299 episodes, and then you decided to come back. What were you thinking, Rebels? What were you thinking? I don't know. So, for those of you who are new, you've missed 299 episodes. You've got a lot of catching up to do. Don't worry, it's not a serialized episode, so you can start from whatever point you would like to. And why not now? So it's amazing that I've done this for almost 5 years. It was in 2019, right before COVID, when I just started to do this little podcast. And I've probably said this on a few other episodes, but again, for the new people, my original plan was only to do about 100 episodes and then just call it quits, but I just really lost track, to be perfectly honest with you. That's what happened. So I just kept on going, and I was having fun, and I've met a lot of wonderful people, had a lot of incredible guests. We've gone down a lot of different roads. We've talked about a lot of different podcasts. I've sampled a lot of podcasts off the podcast charts. Listen to some stuff I didn't think I would end up listening to, but it's good to have a sample and kind of keep your mind open to new things, which is why I always encourage people to check out my podcast. And I've always said, I might not always be everybody's cup of tea. One of my guests told me, and I won't name his name, although now you know it's a male guest, that his wife said, "That guy's wacky." And I said, "Yes, I am an acquired taste, ladies and gentlemen." So but at least she got it, though. So I appreciate the man's wife. Bravo, bravo. So what exactly am I doing here? Well, I don't know. No. What we do, as is tradition, is after we do the season, we kind of have a little bit of a look back and we acknowledge everybody who's made the season, what exactly it is. And of course, the first people I have to thank are you, the listeners, you, the rebels of the Sherpolution. I remember I used to call you guys the people of the pods. Now that's a bit of podcast trivia for you. I don't know who's going to ask you that question, maybe except me. And so, but thank you all for listening. I appreciate the fact that you have a bunch of podcasts, or maybe one or two podcasts that you listen to in the course of the day, and that this is one of them that you listen to, or if it's one of many. Extremely grateful. Number-wise, believe it or not, we've just passed 20,000 downloads not too long ago from the date of this recording. So I'm really happy about that. I've really listened to 19,995 of them. So thank you, you five. I'm just kidding. I'm making all of this up. And for some podcasts, that might seem kind of small. For some, it seems kind of big. This is a little small outfit. I'm not part of a huge network. It's just little old me and with the folks who support me and the people that I seek out for assistance in one way or the other. And we should also acknowledge them. And of course, top of the list, publicist extraordinaire, Mr. Stephen Joyner. And Steve has, throughout the years, gotten me a lot of great guests, and he's been a good buddy. He called me a mensch the other day. I was like, "Oh, I'm a mensch." I like that. Don't know what that means, but I'm a mensch anyway. But thank you, Steve, very much. And of course, the vocal talents of Lord Mr. Bruce and the talented voiceover bots known as the Sherpaloo Studio Players. Thank you all. Thank you all. And of course, we have to acknowledge all of the guests that we've had from day one up until now, and also the future guests that we will be having. Some of them in the past may be coming back, and some of them we will just get to meet for the first time. I never really know where it takes me from week to week. Sometimes I get ahead of my schedule, and sometimes I'm like, "Oh, we got a show. We got to find a guest." I never know which one it's going to be. So it kind of makes it interesting for me. And about our guests, I guess we should really be acknowledging some of those guests. I would like to offer at first all my thanks to the folks who spent some time on the Sherpa Screening Room. And as all well know, the Sherpa Screening Room is the episodes that we have where we get to talk to creators, whether they're in movies or television or music or in literature or anywhere else in between, or even if they've got interesting occupations, we get to spend a little time with them. Kind of like when we heard last week the episode with Mr. Eddie Deason. So thank you all to those who spent a little time hanging out with me here in the Sherpa Screening Room. But I think I should provide you with a little list of the folks who are on here who have podcasts. And that's the section where we call Sherpa Suggestions. And after the Sherpa Suggestions, we will be following that with another segment of Sherpa Samples, where I've been checking out podcasts from the podcast charts from everywhere.
And now it's time for Sherpa Suggestions.
Okay, so who did we listen to this season? We had a couple of really interesting ones as far as podcasts are concerned. So here's some that you may want to check out, and maybe even check out the episodes where I got to interview these folks. The first one we talked to was returning guest Jesse Blaze Snyder. You know Jesse. We love Jesse. And he's got a podcast out called Coolest Geek Alive. And probably one of the more popular ones, I think, from this season were Sharon and Tracy, and they are from the Feet of Clay Confessions of the Cult Sisters. Yes, those ladies were in a cult, and they talk all about it on their podcast. Really cool stuff. They were so much fun. Really enjoyed having them, and you, the listeners, really enjoyed that podcast as well. It's actually already in the top third of my most popular podcasts, believe it or not. And also a special thanks to my friend, I guess my pod pal, we have to say, Adam Shibley, who hosts the Podcasting Business School, for giving me the hookup with those ladies. And really appreciate that, sir. And we also had Mike Kenichi of In the Spotlight, Andrew Johnson, my buddy from Wisdom, the 513 Men, Money, and Marriage. That was another good one, too. Really enjoyed that. Brian Dunning of Skeptoid, where we got to talk about UFOs. Brendan Schexnader of Southern Gothic with spooky stories. Zach Arnold from The Beautiful Impression. Jamie Beebe of Strictly Stalking. It was a podcast about people who've been stalked. Ooh, cool stuff. She was really super nice, too. Really very interesting lady, too. And lastly, Mr. Tony Mazur of the Check Your Brain podcast. We didn't really have as many podcasters on this season for whatever reason. I think it was just some of it were scheduling issues, as I said earlier. Sometimes people just weren't available or things just didn't pan out. But I'm going to work on trying to get you more podcasters for season 12. Wow, that's coming up. Okay, that covers the podcasters and your Sherpa suggestions. Now, if you want to listen to more, check out this edition of Sherpa Samples.
Now it's time for Sherpa Samples. If you've got a podcast you'd like us to sample, contact us and we'll mention your name on the show.
And now it's time for Sherpa Samples, which is where I take a listen from all the podcasts from around Mount Podcastia and let you know what they're all about. And if there is a podcast that you are interested in, drop me a line on Sherpalution, Instagram, X, Facebook, TikTok, one of those things, or even email me at jimthepodcastsherpa@gmail.com. Let me know the name of the show you want me to check out, and your name, yes, your name, will be mentioned on the podcast. Unless you like to remain anonymous, we can do that too. Lots of anonymous people like to talk about our show. I don't know why. But let's talk about some podcasts. First, we have the President's Daily Brief, which is basically a news podcast, and it's pretty short, under 10 minutes, and it's on in the morning and at night, so if there are any updates to stories that are going on, you always get the most current version of the story. It has nothing actually to do with the president, but it's just what they call it. Marketplace is a business podcast. We don't talk too much about business podcasts, and the episode that I checked out talked about podcasts and their future in the business world. Am I safe? Am I not safe? You'll have to listen and find out, I guess. My Fugitive Dad is a true crime story, and it's about a gentleman who lived in Ohio who was obsessed with the Thomas Crown affair, and he worked in a bank, and he actually robbed money out of the bank safe and disappeared. And it actually comes down to an interview with the man's daughter who didn't realize that her father had this story, along with an investigator trying to catch the guy. Pretty cool stuff. This is one that you really want to hear all the chapters to get the whole gist of it. Mortal Sin is another podcast based on actual events, had to do with a pastor who's having affairs with various female members of their congregation. Ooh, you know there's going to be some scandal there. Real Survival Stories is hosted by John Hopkins, and the episode that I checked out was about a group of people who were on safari who were being chased by a hippopotamus. Now, I know you hear that song, I Want a Hippopotamus for Christmas. You might not want a hippopotamus for Christmas after hearing that episode, I can tell you that much. Love It or Leave It is hosted by John Lovett, who is actually one of the members of the Pod Save America podcast. It's kind of a progressive, I guess, politically podcast, and a lot of comedy in this one. There was actually some little sketches and some improvs on there. Very interesting take on a political podcast. Amy and TJ are actually a couple that are news anchors who created a bit of scandal because they had a bit of romantic involvement. And I heard the first episode, and they actually tell the story of what happened from their perspective. And I think it's definitely different from what the media would have you believe. Fascinating episode, definitely to obviously skilled veterans in the broadcast field. And I think hearing their story definitely gives you a truly different perspective on all the hype that you heard in all the gossip magazines. The Tosh Show is hosted by Daniel Tosh, who is a stand-up comedian who had a show once on, I believe it was MTV or Comedy Central, called Tosh 2.0. It's really a lot more of that style of humor. Daniel Tosh definitely has a certain style. And if you are a fan of his, maybe it's a podcast you want to check out. Out of the batch that I listened to, this was one of my favorites, the Best of Car Talk. Now, Car Talk is an NPR radio show originally that was hosted by brothers Tom and Ray Magliotti, otherwise known as Click and Clack. And Tom unfortunately passed in 2014, but they still have these collections of recordings that they did. And it's a tribute to his legacy. I got to tell you, I really enjoyed it. These two guys are very funny and very entertaining. And they basically do a question and answer show with people who have questions about cars. That's simple. You know, when I interviewed Dr. Andrea of Talk About Talk, she said that my laugh was similar to one of the Car Talk guys. I didn't really hear it, but now that I've heard the podcast, though, I'm going to take that as a nice compliment. And lastly, there is a podcast called Sleep With Me. And in this podcast, the host talks to you about all different things in a very slow, relaxed tone to make you eventually fall asleep. And the episode that I listened to, he was discussing National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, the movie. And I've got to say, I find it kind of interesting that a podcast host can use his voice to make you fall asleep. Wake up over there. Oh, we better go back to the outro.
Let's get back to the Sherpa. Sorry about that.
No! And once again, thanks to everybody who's been on the show in season 11 and all of the 10 seasons before that. Thank you all so much. And we know so many who are welcome back to the Sherpa Chalet. You may get to hear them once again. And if you like what you're listening to, you know what to do. Listen to us on your favorite podcast app. We are on podcast apps all over the place. I think I've counted about 22 that we're available on. And if you don't like downloading podcast apps on your phone or your tablet, you can listen on my website, sherpalution.com. All of the episodes are there from episode 1. Or you can even listen on our YouTube channel, and just audio only. Trust me, you're welcome. It's better that way, believe me. And on the Sherpalution YouTube page, it's there. New episodes come out every Wednesday if you are interested and you're just starting to listen. As I mentioned earlier, after 300 episodes, Apple Podcasts starts dropping the oldest episodes. So with new listeners, I don't want you guys to miss out. And we will be doing Sherpa Selects on Saturdays. Saturday Sherpa Selects. There you have it. And we'll be starting from the beginning, going into that first season. I think the first season was probably the most popular season, believe it or not. That was really where we got the most listens out of those 20,000 downloads. A lot of really good stuff. And plus a couple of other episodes in there, obviously. But yeah, the first one you will hear will, of course, be my first episode with my friend, the always wonderful Allison Sharp, who previously hosted a podcast called Travel Snacks. She's not hosting that anymore, but I think she's still on YouTube and doing some stuff and talking about, I think, her time in a cult as well. We love Allison here at the Sherpa Chalet. She will always be a friend of the podcast. And there'll be a couple of other ones coming up in future weeks that I might have even forgotten about, but they were really good interviews. So it'll definitely refresh my memory to get to hear them. These episodes that you will be hearing, I'll be tweaking them a little bit so that they sound a little bit nicer. Because I know when I first started out, the audio quality was okay, but it really wasn't up to the standard that I was hoping that it would be at. So now I've got a few little toys in my arsenal, so I know how to clean it up just a little bit. So I hope you enjoy that. And again, don't be afraid to leave us a nice review. That would be great on Apple Podcasts. And once we get 100 reviews, we're going to have a contest. You know what's going to happen. You're going to win podcast merchandise. Woohoo! You'll pick something out. I will have it sent to you. It will not cost you a plug nickel. I promise you that. But we've got to get up to that 100. So this is where I need your help. And also, if you'd like to support the show, I mean, that's a nice free way to do it. We also have the Sherpa shop, which I may actually do a little tinkering with it in the near future as well. There's also a Ko-fi page if you want to donate money. Not mandatory, of course. I know some people do the Patreon where you get special episodes. What I'm recording is what you're getting, and it's free. But if you want to support us, you can do one of those things. Buy merchandise or make a donation if you like. Again, no pressure. But if you can kind of spread the word, I would really appreciate that. The more people we get listening, maybe we can get some more sponsors, and then that'll be nice. Actually, little secret, I was contacted by someone that I've got to get back in touch with regarding doing a little sponsorship on the podcast. So if you hear a new ad, that'll be our new sponsor. We'll see how that all plays out for 2024. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. The person sounded very nice, and you'll know in the near future. I guess that's everything I wanted to babble on about. So I appreciate you for indulging me and spending some time here. We'll be back next week, and I think it'll be a Too Many Podcasts episode, if I'm not mistaken, just as long as my scheduling thing works out. That's the big thing. So until then, for all of you, I say thank you, and viva la Sherpalution.
Thanks for listening to Too Many Podcasts. Please disperse. You can go home now. I said you can go home now. Viva la Sherpalution. Viva la Sherpalution. Yeah, I'll come back now, you hear?
Rebels, if you've been checking out some of my promotional ads on social media, you'll be aware that I have been using a lot of AI programs to help me create ads. But you know what? There's a lot more uses for AI than just funny little videos. And I'd like to introduce one of our new sponsors, Podimo. It is a leader in creating AI tools for podcasters. Now, let's say you've got a podcast, or maybe you're even thinking of doing a podcast. You're probably wondering, well, how can AI be integrated with your workflow? I'll tell you about Podimo. As a podcaster, you know that writing show notes and creating chapters and transcribing episodes takes a lot of time, and it can cost you a lot of money too. But you know what? That's where Podimo comes in. It's an AI tool designed specifically for creators and podcasters with the goal of making post-production tasks quick and easy. And in just a few minutes, Podimo generates show notes, chapters, summaries, clips for social media, a full transcript, suggested episode titles, social media posts, and more. Whew, that's a lot of work for one little program. Your show notes are key to your podcast's success because it helps new listeners find your podcast and they'll know if it's a fit for them. Kind of like Too Many Podcasts. It also improves your SEO. That's your search engine optimization. Ooh, big phrase there. And overall accessibility. And with Podimo, you can focus on creating a great podcast and let Podimo's AI do the heavy lifting. But Podimo isn't just for solo creators and podcasters. It's a game changer for editors, producers, marketers, agencies, and production studios. Teams that use Podimo are able to increase workloads, decrease turnaround times, and improve their quality. How does it work? Very easy. First, go to Podimo's website, and you'll see that link that's right there in the show notes. You get 3 hours free just to try it. Pretty cool, huh? And using that link also supports this show as well. And you know what else happens? Because I'm a good guy. You use my link, you will get 50% off for your first month. So visit the site, upload an MP3 file, and download your files, and that's it. And if you need anything else, you can use Podimo GPT to generate articles and any marketing copy you might need in seconds. Instant show notes, transcripts, chapters for your podcast or channel. This will level up that podcast. So check out Podimo today.